And we are pleased to welcome Stephen Poplin as our guest in the pulpit. Stephen is a writer and hypnotherapist who wonders if the majority of the world is hypnotized the majority of the time. Stephen plans to share tales from the trails, similar to his published works on spiritual journeys. He is a weaver of ideas and notions and wishes to remind us, our congregation, of its transcendental roots.
In the woods, we return to reason and faith. There I feel that nothing can befall me in life. No disgrace, no calamity, leaving me my eyes, which nature cannot repair, standing on the bare ground, my head bathed by the blithe air and uplifted into infinite space. All mean egotism vanishes. I become a transparent eyeball. I am nothing. I see all. The currents of the universal being circulate through me. I am part and particle of God. And that's from Nature in 1836, when Ralph was in his 30s. So my vision and my perception is a little bit off, and I find myself like aiming, wanting to grab something, and I go, nope, it's not here, it's here. Because in the last 2 months, I've had 3 operations on my right eye, and it's been quite a journey, and appreciation, of course, of vision, and what a gift sight is, especially since I'm a photographer, traveler. I love beauty in all its many different ways. In fact, when I fell, I was in Spain, gallivanting through the interesting old towns, and it was in Toledo, Spain, that I slipped and fell, and even though I didn't hurt my head, I caught myself, but then I jarred my eye, evidently, and I tore my retina. And there were lots of trailers, which was kind of interesting, but there was no pain, and so I didn't think too much of it, and continued for another 3 weeks, going through Spain, and a week in Portugal. And then when I came back here to Roanoke, I just had already planned a regular checkup at the doctor, and I just happened to mention it. So, oh, by the way, I've got these trailers, and periodically flashes of light. And he says, They sent me immediately that day, to have my first session. And that is interesting, this laser going inside your eyeball. I think that's like a medical miracle. That was not happening when I was younger. So that was, again, part of modern medicine. And it reminds me, of course, of not only my eye and vision, but since then I've had to kind of revision what are my priorities, what am I seeing, where am I going, how am I evaluating things. And it's been also quite an interesting perspective right there, because at the time I was over in Spain thinking, oh, I think I'll be an expat again. And I've been off and on living in Europe for about 15 years, so I know what that's like. And I said, well, I guess it's time to go again. But then with the operation, I was out of commission, and I just had to stay put and think about it and wonder what is the meaning here. And as I was doing that, I recalled years ago when I had a vision. And I was 21 years old. I was living in Colorado, and I was out in a park, and suddenly the leaves on the trees began to vibrate and shimmer. And then I looked down, and the grass was effervescent. And I was like amazed. I mean, what a beautiful, beautiful thing, but I had no clue what was going on. And it wasn't until some years later that, when I tried to describe, what I saw that day, I kind of described it like a little fairy dust over the top of my head, that kind of awakened me to the majesty of life. And it's only during my convalescence here lately that I recognized that since I grew up with television and movies, I, of course, was periodically aware of these screens and the effervescent lights, which was kind of similar to this vision I had. And let me say one extra thing about that vision. Within months, I had lost most of my friends because I was rewired and I was looking for truth. And I wondered, what the heck is going on here? Because I was asleep. I wish it was like some sort of great awareness and, soul-searching sort of thing, but no, it was a day in the park in Colorado, and things started getting effervescent, and then I go, wow, and then I started asking the big questions. Why are we here? What's going on? And I was asleep, and how did that happen? Because I had a driver's license. But then from there, then I recognized that, wow, there's probably millions of people who are also kind of like doing hypnosis driving. And how far does that go? And how did we get hypnotized in the first place? And that led me to studying hypnosis. I became a hypnotherapist and studied philosophy because within months of that happening, I said, wow, I have to understand. I need to know what's going on. And that led me to Ralph Waldo Emerson and other great philosophers and so forth who, kind of put it all together. I wanted to revision things and see what was going on. And that's when, after a while, and it took some years, I recognized that, well, yes, just like me, sleepwalking, the majority of the world is hypnotized the majority of the time. And how does that happen? Well, looking at the mechanics of hypnosis and all the different ways that we can be influenced, programmed, indoctrinated, I go, wow, boy, just add it all up. And then it was only in the last couple of months, I was out of commission and I had to stay home and I had to, lie prone, to put the gas ball in front of my eyeball, all of those things. And then I started reflecting again upon that experience when I was 21. And had I not had, my personal experience of, growing up with televisions and movies and so forth, and so then it wasn't like, effervescence and vibrations and things like that. Had I had the very same experience like 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 2,000 years ago, what I saw that day could have been the burning bush. And for decades, that idea did not come into my head. And I don't even know if that's true, because I don't know way back when what they actually saw and what that burning bush really was. But when I take myself away from me and plant myself in another time, another culture, and I do that with reincarnation sessions, then I go, wow, that really kind of like puts a slant, a new look on this. And so with that, I had a couple things to say from my explorations in history, and I pay attention to time and dates and today is the 25th of May. Today is a day of decision. My, that sounds important. I was just planning lunch and a nap later. But it does seem like another day, and on one level, every day is important. So let's go forth. And as we walk along our wooded trail, daily, today, influencers, politicians, and experts are striving for our attention to lead us, convince us, impress us, urge us to move towards a destination they believe is best for us, for the nation, for the world, or for their pocketbooks. Vying, sometimes lying, for your attention. Authority figures invisibly utilize the hypnotic power of conformity and influence. Free thinkers don't listen. Any free thinkers here? I thought so. Connected to this noise, these draws on our attention are the big picture, the little picture, and lately, alternative facts or distorted pictures. Let us lay aside the unreal for a minute and take a look at macro and microeconomics, international tariffs, hypnosis, and picking up some salsa at the co-op. It has been said that we are the captains of our ships. Which way will we go? How will we steer our personal ships? What if we sail in the wrong direction? An unpopular direction. But would that be really a wrong direction? And by whose determination? I like to look at historical patterns through the lens of hypnotic suggestion, sometimes called indoctrination, bending to authorities, peer pressure, or even mob mentality, pressures to conform. But let me say really quickly, there was this woman who had just turned 100, and it was a big deal in this little town, and the local reporter came to interview her and, congratulated her. Wow, 100 years old, amazing, So tell me, what's one of the best things about being 100? And she says, no peer pressure. I open up a history book. The 25th of May, 1521. The Diet of Worms ends when Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor, issues the Edict of Worms. Before I move on here, I remember in junior high coming across this particular story and thinking, the Diet of Worms? That's been pretty yucky. And all of my juvenile friends could also not believe that. Well, some years later, I learned German and could read that phrase more maturely. It was a diet of worms. Oh, yucky. No salsa is going to save that. Just joking. Actually, in German, it is Reichstag zu Worms, or an official assembly in that town. The word Diet is Latin. Worms is located just north of Mannheim, where centuries later, the automobile maker Carl Benz started a factory. Anyway, back in 1521, Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor, issued the Edict of Worms, declaring Martin Luther an outlaw. Luther questioned the Catholic Church and its authority, and in detail. So they declared that he was the wrong type of Christian. And worse, he translated the Bible into the local vernacular so that the average people could read it themselves. Well, that was definitely a no-no. If the people did that, countered the church, then they could interpret it themselves. No. He was told to recant. He famously replied, "I cannot and will not recant anything, since it is neither safe nor right to go against conscience." May God help me. I draw upon history, as I imagine you do too. There is so much to learn, and sometimes we have to read between the lines. On this day, the 25th of May, 1895, playwright, poet, and novelist Oscar Wilde is convicted of committing acts of gross indecency with other male persons, and he was sentenced to serve 2 years in prison. Proper society, Victorian society, which we now know had a bit of mischief also in the back rooms going on, had declared the witty Wilde too much, a wicked man, improper and immoral. Of course, he was born wild. Nomen est omen. The people wondered if there were any sympathetic citizens who defended Wilde at the time, then they too could be suspect. Better to be quiet, witnessing the injustice, than having the magnifying glass peering at oneself. I imagine there was a lot of talk about propriety, injustice, or proper justice behind closed doors. But it wasn't safe to speak publicly about such things. Luckily, we have all advanced since those times. The history book is still open. What's in a day? May 25th, 1925. In a state just over the western border from us, they had the Scopes trial. John T. Scopes was indicted for teaching human evolution in Tennessee. Charles Darwin and evolutionary theory was on trial. Fundamentalist Christians there knew that the earth was 6,000 years old. And the good citizens of Tennessee didn't want such contrary views taught to their children. Science was on trial. You know, now that I read this, I think this could make a great movie. So people were taking a stand. Two sides striving to influence school children. Deja vu. Wait a minute. It has been said that we are the captains of our own ships. Which way will we go? How will we steer our personal ships? Or am I repeating myself? Let us return to Ralph Waldo Emerson, born on this day, 222 years ago, 1803. And what he said about steering a ship in the windy storms of the Atlantic. Let's say we are sailing from New England going towards Great Britain, and this was, of course, the days of the great sailing ships, the clipper ships. And so he said, to go in your particular direction, you might have to tack and move and adjust your directions. And that might seem like you're going off course, but no, you keep in mind your directions, your goal. And it's okay to shift and change and move because we're staying true to our ideals, whatever that goal happens to be. Knowledge and experience would aid us. And we should decide the goal. And a plus to that is we will never walk alone. We are talking about travel, planning, living within an objective. Keep your eye on the goal. And then think about the audacity. In 1961, on the 25th of May, the Apollo program. And U.S. President John F. Kennedy announces before a special joint session of the U.S. Congress that the goal was to put a man on the moon within the decade. Yes, a man to the moon, and not because it's easy. Can that be done? It seemed to be pretty impossible. But 8 years later, that dream was fulfilled. A galvanizing goal and an inspiration that united the technical minds of that decade. And what a decade that was, the 60s. We are right here in another decade, momentous, with some serious winds and some stormy seas, from COVID masks to red hats. What would Emerson say? Or, as he preferred to call himself, Waldo, what would Waldo do? Waldo would have us keep our ideal on the one. Think big, sky high. We are all part of the one. And nature, in its quiet glory, comes very close to embodying that. The immense power and unity of the one. And then we ask, where is your ship headed? What is your ideal? Look, here comes the sun. And the sun as an ideal, as a symbol, that perfect round orb, light giver. Many ancient cultures revered the sun as a live being, an inspiration. Even if it's a metaphor, it's still divine, that divine spark. So he would say, stay true to your goal. It's okay to tack, to shift, while remembering the unifying one and move forth. Set your sail, catch the winds. I'm talking about being cognizant of the general news, the zeitgeist, and still maintain your aim, your individual goals and ideals. You folks, you understand when I say you. You're already fairly good at this, aware of the petty views and popular political antics while gathering here and at other places of helpful community, rolling up your sleeves and making a positive difference right here and now. Emerson, born into a Unitarian family, when the ideals of this congregation was young and still cooking, had this firm foundation, and from here he grew. He read widely, from ancient philosophy and Asian beliefs to innovative writers and thinkers from many lands. A broad-minded, eternal student, striving to understand how the one can express itself in 1,000 ways. How many eternal students do we have here? Okay. Some of you are a bit shy. And so we wake up from hypnotic social conditioning, refocus on grand priorities, the divine one, and set our sails. There on the horizon is our goal. Once home, once we land, we plant our gardens, our nourishing veggies and aesthetic flowers. How does your garden grow? This reminds me of the Earth Day ideal. Think globally, act locally. Thank you for your time. Blessings to you all, and keep your eye in the sky.